10 intros that made you stop what you were doing the first time you heard them. You know these. Not the songs, the openings, before the words, before the chorus, just those first 5 seconds that tell you everything you need to know. Air guitar in a bedroom you weren't supposed to be in. That cassette rewound until it wore thin. The moment a riff became bigger than the band that wrote it. These aren't just intros. They're the reason you fell in love with rock music. Number 10, Black Sabbath, Iron Man. That riff sounds like metal moving, not metaphorically. When Tony Iommi wrote it in 1970, he was trying to imagine what a large piece of iron would sound like if it could walk. And then he made it happen. Slow, heavy, each note bending the air around it. You've heard it a million times, and it still hits like the first. Those opening power chords, deliberate, crushing, before Ozzy's voice comes through that electric fan, creating the robotic effect that makes your spine straighten. But here's what most people don't know. The robotic intro wasn't planned. Geezer Butler ran Ozzy's voice through an electric fan just to see what would happen. One take. That buzzing mechanical quality that sounds like a machine trying to speak. Accident. Beautiful accident. And suddenly the song had a voice before it had vocals. Then that riff drops. VH1 ranked it the greatest heavy metal song of all time. Not just great, the greatest. And you can hear why in the first 10 seconds, before lyrics, before the story of a time traveler turned to steel by a magnetic field, just Tony Iommi making a guitar sound like doom itself learned to walk. Here's the thing about 1970. The Beatles had just broken up. Everyone was still trying to figure out what came next after the British invasion. And Black Sabbath showed up with a riff so heavy it didn't just answer the question, it created an entire genre. Heavy metal wasn't a term yet. This song helped invent it. If you've ever stood in front of an amp and felt a riff in your chest before you heard it in your ears, you understand that's not just music, that's physics. That's Tony Iommi imagining iron coming to life and somehow making his guitar do exactly that. Grammy Award in 2000, nearly 30 years after release. That's how long it took the industry to catch up to what Sabbath already knew in the studio. This intro doesn't introduce a song, it announces an arrival. And here's what's wild. The Marvel character came after. The song predates Iron Man the superhero by years. Tony Stark borrowed the name from Ozzy Osbourne. Number 9, The Kinks, You Really Got Me. August 1964. The Beatles owned the world, and then 4 guys from North London showed up with a guitar sound nobody had heard before. Not distortion the way you know it now. Destruction. Dave Davies took a razor blade to his amplifier speaker, slashed the cone, then played through it anyway. Ray Davies wanted the song to be jazz, a laid-back number built around a saxophone line. Dave heard it and said, no, this goes on guitar. And if we're putting it on guitar, we're putting it through a shredded speaker. The label heard the first version and said it was fine. Ray Davies said it wasn't, threatened to refuse to promote the single unless they could re-record. Pie Records said no, the first 2 singles flopped, we're not funding another session. So the band's management paid for it themselves. July 12th, 1964. IBC Studios, one more shot, then listen to what producer Shel Talmy did. He recorded the guitar on 2 channels, one distorting, one clean, combined them, created a sound that seemed louder than physics should allow, used 12 microphones on the drums, unheard of in 1964, so they'd bounce off the walls, kicked Dave's amp as they walked past during takes just to make it sound rougher. And that opening riff, power chords before anyone called them that, perfect fifths and octaves, Raw, aggressive, the blueprint for hard rock and heavy metal, recorded years before Led Zeppelin or Black Sabbath existed. Number 1 in the UK for 2 weeks. Number 7 in the US. And if you were around in 1964, you remember how different it sounded. Everything else on the radio was trying to be the Beatles. The Kinks sounded like they were trying to break your speakers, and it worked. Pete Townshend heard "You Really Got Me" and wrote "I Can't Explain" because of it. Van Halen covered it in 1978 and introduced a whole new generation to the song. Some kids thought Van Halen wrote it. Dave Davies had to explain in interviews that no, they were covering us. Here's what makes this intro so perfect. It doesn't build. It doesn't tease. It starts. Full power, immediate. That riff lurching to life from the first note and never letting go. If you've ever played guitar, you've played this riff, probably in the first month you picked up the instrument, because it's simple and devastating, and that combination is rarer than you think. Consequence of Sound called the album proto-punk. That's 1964 punk rock, 13 years before the Sex Pistols. The Kinks did it first with a razor blade and a refusal to do jazz.
Let's look at the numbers. Only 9% of you are actually subscribed. Honestly, that's tough to see. Our team spends days hunting down archives and verifying every single fact just to tell these stories right. If you've made it this far into the video, you're clearly part of the community, so please hit subscribe. It costs nothing and helps us immensely. Now, for those already subscribed, very few of you have made the jump to our membership, and that's a hard pill to swallow because you're the ones who know our value best. If this channel has moved you or inspired you, consider joining. It's the price of one coffee, but it's the literal fuel for this channel. Let's keep this alive together. Back to the story.
Number 8, Metallica, Enter Sandman. "56 seconds, that's how long the intro builds before the main riff hits. Chorus pedal, wah-wah, tom-toms. The tension climbing like something crawling toward you in the dark. And if you were listening to rock radio in the summer of 1991, you knew exactly what was coming, but it didn't matter. The build-up still worked every single time. Kirk Hammett wrote that main riff. Lars Ulrich called it a one-riff song. Everything derives from those opening notes. E minor, simple, brutal. And Lars was the only band member who wanted it to be the first single. The rest of the band wanted Holier Than Thou. Producer Bob Rock had to convince them. Big argument, but Lars held his ground. Said this was the song. This was the one that would take them from thrash metal legends to the biggest band in the world. And he was right. July 29th, 1991. 2 weeks before the Black Album dropped, radio stations got Enter Sandman, and everything changed. Number 16 on the Billboard Hot 100. Number 5 in the UK. 9 million copies shipped in the United States. 9 million. One song. Metallica went from selling out clubs to selling out stadiums because of an intro that takes almost a minute to get to the riff. But here's the part that makes it genius. Most bands would have cut that build up. Radio wanted shorter, labels wanted hooks faster. Metallica said, no, we're making you wait for it. And when the main riff finally kicks in at the 56-second mark, it feels like a release. Like tension you didn't know you were holding. James Hetfield wrote lyrics about destroying the perfect family, dark stuff, crib death, horrible secrets. Lars and Bob Rock told him to rewrite them. First time in Metallica's history, anyone told Hetfield his lyrics weren't good enough. He rewrote them. The song became about a child's nightmares. Still dark, but accessible, and it worked. Here's what you might not know. The original demo was instrumental, recorded August 13th, 1990. No lyrics, no vocal melody, just that riff and the structure. And the band already knew this was the foundation, the guide to the whole album, even without words. If you've ever heard that intro blast through arena speakers, you know what I'm talking about. The sound is physical. It moves air, changes the room, and that's before the vocals start. That's just the intro doing its job, announcing that something heavy is coming out, and you better be ready. Nominated for Best Rock Song at the 1992 Grammys. Lost to Sting's The Soul Cages, which is fine, because Enter Sandman didn't need the Grammy. It had something better. It had an intro that became bigger than awards. Number 7, Derek and the Dominos, Layla. When you get lonely, I was waiting by your side. 7 notes, that's all it takes. 7 notes, and you know exactly what song is coming. Eric Clapton and Duane Allman locked in, playing counter melodies like two hands in a glove. Producer Tom Dowd said he'd never seen spontaneous inspiration happen at that rate and level. One of them would play something and the other would react instantaneously. Not once did either have to say, "Could you play that again, please?" Telepathy. That's the only word for it. September 9, 1970. Final day of recording sessions at Criteria Studios in Miami. Clapton had been writing with Derek and the Dominos for weeks, but Layla was different. He already had the 7-note riff, took it from Albert King's As the Years Go Passing By and sped it up, way up, turned a slow blues lick into something urgent, desperate, because that's what the song is about. Desperation, unrequited love. Clapton wrote it for Patty Boyd, George Harrison's wife at the time, his friend's wife. The lyrics came from a 12th century Persian poem about a man who fell hopelessly in love with a beautiful girl, went crazy, and couldn't marry her. Clapton read it and saw himself, but here's the complication. Bobby Whitlock, the keyboard player, says Layla would have been just as great without Duane on it. And he might be right, but you'll never know. Because what Duane Allman brought to that intro is inseparable from the song now. 3 guitar tracks of Eric playing harmony and the main riff. 1 track of Duane on bottleneck. 1 track of both of them locked together in real time. No rehearsal, no second takes, just pure reaction. The edited version came out in 1971. 2 minutes, 43 seconds. Flopped, number 51 on the charts. Eric Clapton went into a drug-filled depression, couldn't understand why it wasn't a hit. The full 7-minute version came out a year later with Jim Gordon's piano coda that forms the second half of the song and made number 7 in the UK, number 10 in the US. Duane Allman died in a motorcycle accident in October the 1971. Suddenly the song meant something different. The intro wasn't just an intro anymore. It was the last great recording of one of rock's most telepathic partnerships. Here's what makes this intro perfect. It doesn't announce itself with power. It announces itself with motion. Those 7 notes climbing and descending like they're chasing something they can't catch. And if you've ever wanted something you couldn't have, not because it didn't exist, but because the timing was wrong, the circumstances impossible, you know exactly what that intro sounds like. It sounds like Long and Made Physical. And when Clapton re-recorded it acoustic in 1992 for Unplugged, slowed it down, changed the whole arrangement, that 7-note riff still worked because great intros aren't about production. They're about the idea underneath. And this idea, 7 notes that sound like desperation, will never get old. Number 6, AC/DC. Back in Black. February 1980. Bon Scott dies. AC/DC considers breaking up. The voice that defined them for 7 years, gone. Highway to Hell had just made them international stars. They were supposed to record the follow-up, and now they're sitting in a room trying to figure out if there's even a point in continuing. Malcolm Young, Angus Young, Cliff Williams, Phil Rudd, 4 guys without their frontman. They decide to keep going. Recruit Brian Johnson, former vocalist for Geordie. And in April 1980, they fly to Nassau in the Bahamas to record with producer Robert John Mutt Lange. 7 weeks. That's all they had. 7 weeks to figure out if AC/DC could survive without Bon Scott. And then Angus and Malcolm Young write that riff. 3 chords. Simple. Monumental. Rolling Stone would later call it the platonic ideal of hard rock. Not great hard rock, not excellent. The platonic ideal, the perfect form. Metal Hammer said it's a 3-chord monster that appeals to everybody, from dads to dudes to little old ladies beating noisy kids over the heads with their sticks. Brian Johnson got the assignment. Write lyrics for this riff. And the band had one rule. It can't be morbid, it has to be for Bon, and it has to be a celebration. Johnson thought, well, no pressure there then. And he wrote what came into his head. 9 lives, cat's eyes, abusing every one of them and running wild. The boys got it. They saw Bon's life in that lyric. July 25th, 1980. Back in Black hits the US, UK, and Europe follow on July 31st. Australia on August 11th. All black album cover. Atlantic Records hated it. Angus said it was a sign of mourning for Bon. Label agreed to it only if they put a gray outline around the AC/DC logo. Fine, whatever. This album wasn't about compromise, it was about survival. Number 1 on the British albums chart. Number 4 in the US, exceptional for a heavy metal album, Rolling Stone said. And it never left. Stayed in the top 10 of the American chart for more than 5 months. Topped British charts for 2 weeks. Eventually sold 50 million copies worldwide. Second best-selling album in music history. 27 times platinum in the US. Third best-selling album in America. And it never reached number 1 on the charts. Think about that. Best-selling album that never hit number 1 because it didn't need to. It just kept selling month after month, year after year. And that intro, listen to what happens. A CDC's judicious use of space, The Guardian called it. Angus and Malcolm don't rush. They let the riff breathe, let each chord ring out before the next one hits. It's not complexity, it's confidence. Knowing that 3 chords played with absolute conviction will do more than 100 notes played without purpose. VH1 ranked it the number 4 greatest metal song, number 2 greatest hard rock song of all time in 2009. Rolling Stone put it at number 187 on their 500 greatest songs list, number 29 on their 100 greatest guitar songs. And if you were a kid learning guitar in the 1980s, this was one of the first riffs you learned. Not because it was easy, though it is, because it was essential. Here's what makes this intro perfect for what it represents. This is a band announcing they're not done. Bon Scott's death could have ended them. Instead, they came back with an opening riff that sounds like a declaration of war. Not against anyone, against the idea that you stop when tragedy hits, against the thought that the best is behind you. And if you've ever lost someone, a bandmate, a friend, someone who made you believe you could do the impossible thing, you know what this intro sounds like. It sounds like defiance, like grief turned into forward motion, like the decision to keep playing even when the stage feels empty. Brian Johnson said Bond's life was in that lyric, but Bond's spirit is in that intro, that 3-chord monster that refuses to apologize for being alive. That riff that says, "We're back and we're not asking permission." Album certified 27 times platinum on August 21st, 2024, 44 years after release. Still selling, still resonating, because Back in Black didn't just save AC/DC, it became the sound of resilience in rock form. Number 5, Led Zeppelin, Whole Lotta Love. Way down inside, honey. Summer of 1968, Jimmy Page sitting on his houseboat on the River Thames at Pangbourne, and that riff just arrives. 2-bar blues derived, distorted guitar, bass joining on the repetition. Page played it on a Telecaster through a Vox Super Beetle, and it sounded like sex and violence learned to live in the same room. When the band heard it, they knew. Robert Plant lifted phrases from Willie Dixon's "You Need Love," originally recorded by Muddy Waters in 1962. Lawsuit came in 1985. Dixon won, got paid, got credit on subsequent release. Plant admitted it. Page's riff was Page's riff. It was there before anything else. The lyrics were a nick, now happily paid for. But that intro, listen to it, it doesn't start on the downbeat. Kicks off on the end of the third beat, creates this lurch like the song is already moving before you catch up to it. Then John Bonham's drum fill ignites everything and you're gone. Page is playing about 3 or 4 parts at once, producing himself, creating something that Billboard ranked as a hit before it even became one. November 7th, 1969, released as a single everywhere except the UK, Peter Grant, the manager, refused, said it would hurt album sales. He was probably right. Led Zeppelin 2 became one of the best-selling albums of all time. People bought the whole thing just to hear Whole Lotta Love. First Led Zeppelin hit in the US, certified gold. Here's what makes it legendary. BBC Radio. 2 listeners voted it the greatest guitar riff of all time in 2014. Not great, not top 10, the greatest. I'm gonna give you my love. And if you grew up in the UK in the 1970s, you heard it every single week. Top of the Pops used it as their theme song. That intro became the sound of the British charts for an entire generation. But here's the twist. The middle section, the theremin, the echo effects, the psychedelic chaos, that's what made producer Bob Rock and engineer Eddie Kramer fall in love with the track. But it's the intro that grabs you, the intro that makes you turn the volume up before you even know why. Page used backwards echo, a production technique almost nobody else was doing in 1969. Engineer J.J. Blair analyzed the multi-track years later and found that the second guitar track contained traces of an earlier vocal by Plant caused by microphonic induction of the guitar pickup. Accident created this thin-sounding vocal that preceded the main vocal track like a ghost. And if you've ever heard that intro blast from a car window on a summer night, you know, it doesn't sound like 1969, it sounds like now. Q Magazine ranked it number 3 on their list of the 100 greatest guitar tracks in 2005. Rolling Stone put it at number 11 on a similar list. The impact is simple. When you hear those first few notes, you know, not just the song, the whole era, the whole idea of what rock music could be when it stopped being polite. That's a hell of a riff. And Page knew it was good. He just didn't know it would become an anthem. Number 4, Deep Purple, Smoke on the Water. December 4th, 1971, Montreux, Switzerland. Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention are playing the Montreux Casino. Deep Purple is supposed to record there the next day with the Rolling Stones mobile studio. Then during King Kong, some idiot in the audience fires a flare gun at the rattan-covered ceiling. Whole place goes up. Some stupid with a flare gun burned the place to the ground. Funky Claude Nobbs, director of the Montreux Jazz Festival, is running in and out helping people escape. Deep Purple watches the whole thing from across Lake Geneva, smoke rising over the water. Ritchie Blackmore went back to his room and wrote that riff. 4 notes, G minor, blues scale, harmonized in parallel fourths. He says he based it on Beethoven's Fifth Reversed. Bassist Roger Glover said that might have been a joke. Blackmore's sense of humor makes it hard to tell. Doesn't matter. The riff is iconic either way. John Lord doubled it on a Hammond C3 organ played through a distorted Marshall amp, creating a tone almost identical to the guitar. Here's the thing about this riff. A 5-year-old can play it. 3 frets, 3 strings, simple as breathing. And that's exactly why it's perfect. Total Guitar magazine readers voted it the #1 riff of all time in 2004. Not number 5, not top 10. Number 1. Q magazine ranked it number 12 on their list of 100 greatest guitar tracks, inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame in 2017, 45 years after release. Recognition doesn't always arrive on time. Sometimes it takes decades for people to understand what they've been listening to, but guitarists knew immediately. This became the first riff you learn, the gateway. Before you know what a power chord is, before you understand scales, you learn Smoke on the Water. In 1994, 1,322 guitarists gathered in Vancouver and played it simultaneously for the Guinness Book of World Records. 2007, Kansas City topped that with 1,721 guitarists. 20 days later, Germany beat them both with over 1,800. That's not just a riff, that's a shared language. The album Machine Head came out in March 1972. Song wasn't released as a single until May 1973. A full year later, band didn't think it would be a hit. Why would it? 7 minutes long, tells a specific story about a casino fire in Switzerland built around the simplest riff imaginable, but it climbed to number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100 because sometimes the simplest idea is the one that breaks through. And if you've ever been in a music store when someone plugs in a guitar for the first time, you know what happens next. They play this, not because it's easy, though it is, because it's the riff that makes you feel like you're already in a band, even when you're alone in a room with an amp and a dream. Ritchie Blackmore played it using a finger pluck, not a pick, gave it that specific attack, that slightly sloppy human quality that makes it feel alive instead of mechanical. And that matters because the best intros aren't about perfection. They're about presence, about announcing something real is about to happen. Number 3, Guns N' Roses, Sweet Child of Mine. Everyone knows the myth / warming up, playing a finger exercise, accidentally creating one of the most famous riffs in rock history. Not true. Slash debunked it himself in 2022 on the Eddie Trunk podcast. Somebody else said that and it just became one of those things. It wasn't a warm-up exercise. I was sitting around the house where Guns used to live at one point in '86 and I just came up with this riff. It was just me messing around and putting notes together like any riff you do. You're like, this is cool. And then you put the third note and find a melody like that. But here's where the story gets better. Duff McKagan says Slash wrote it to sabotage the song. Izzy Stradlin had the chord progression. D, C, G. Axl liked it. Slash hated it. Thought it was too soft, too up-tempo ballad. Didn't fit what Guns N' Roses was supposed to be about. Told Duff, we've got to get rid of this song somehow. So he wrote what he thought was this twisted, just a tonal thing to ruin it. The intro, that cascading circus melody pattern that starts the song. Of course, it didn't kill the song. It made the song. Became the instantly recognizable opening to Guns N' Roses' only #1 single in the U.S. released 1988, certified 9 times platinum. Appetite for Destruction became one of the best-selling albums of all time, and Slash still didn't like it for years. Called it an up-tempo ballad that didn't fit their AC/DC hard rock shtick. In 1990, he said, it turned into a huge hit and now it makes me sick. But he loved the solo section. That was his saving grace, the part he looked forward to playing live.
Where do we go? Where do we go? Oh, where do we go?
Here's what's wild about this intro. It's in D major. D, E, F sharp, G, A, first 5 notes of the D major scale. Basic. Almost childlike in its simplicity. But the pattern, the way Slash arranged those notes, the rhythm, the way they cascade and climb and then fall back down, that's what makes it unforgettable. Total Guitar readers voted it the #1 riff of all time in 2004. Same year as Smoke on the Water and Iron Man. Everyone has their own ranking, but this one keeps showing up at the top. The radio edit cut the song from 5:56 to 4:58, removed most of Slash's guitar solo to make room for more commercials. Axl Rose hated that edit. Said in 1989, my favorite part of the song is Slash's slow solo. It's the heaviest part for me. There's no reason for it to be missing except to create more space for commercials. But even the chopped version couldn't kill what that intro does. If you've ever been in a room when someone plays the first 6 notes, you've seen it. Everyone stops. Everyone knows. Before the vocals. Before she's got a smile that it seems to me. Just that riff, climbing up the strings like it's searching for something it can't quite reach. And here's the beautiful irony. Slash wrote it to kill the song. Thought it was too twisted, too atonal, too weird for what they were trying to. Turns out what he thought was sabotage was exactly what the song needed. Sometimes your attempts to ruin something create the only part worth keeping. In more recent years, Slash has made peace with it. We're sort of blessed that we have something that's become as memorable as that. And he's right, because that intro isn't just an opening to a song, it's the sound of accidental genius refusing to go away. Number 2, Led Zeppelin, Stairway to Heaven. November 8th, 1971, Led Zeppelin 4 drops, and on it is a song the band refused to release as a single. Atlantic Records begged. Peter Grant, the manager, said absolutely not. The song needed to be heard in the context of the album, and if you want to hear it, you buy the whole thing. It worked. People bought Led Zeppelin 4 like it was the single. Over 30 million copies sold because everyone wanted to hear Stairway to Heaven. Jimmy Page recorded that acoustic intro on a finger-picked 6-string guitar. 4 recorders layering underneath. Quiet, almost fragile. The exact opposite of what people expected from Led Zeppelin. And then it builds. Slow electric middle section. Guitar solo at 5:34. Fast hard rock section at 6:45. 8 minutes total. A journey from whisper to roar. And it all starts with that intro. Delicate. Beautiful. Rick Beato, producer, musician, music educator, ranked it the #1 acoustic guitar intro of all time. Not top 5, not close second, #1. It really couldn't be anything else. He said, and he's right. VH1 ranked the song number 3 on their list of 100 greatest rock songs in 2000. Rolling Stone put it at number 31 on their 500 greatest songs of all time list in 2004. Later moved it to number 61 in the 2021 update. Guitar World named the guitar solo the greatest of all time. By 2000, the song had logged over 3 million radio plays. Despite never being a single, despite never getting the promotional push that other songs received, it became the most requested song on FM rock radio through pure word of mouth. People heard it, told their friends, played it at parties, learned it on guitar. Here's what Page said about it later. I knew it was good. I didn't know it was going to become like an anthem, but I did know it was the gem of the album, sure. The intro was recorded between late 1970 and 1971 at Island Studios in Headley Grange. Page sat with John Paul Jones the second night and wrote out the music. Sent Robert Plant and John Bonham to the pub, just the two of them working out the arrangement, creating something that would define what rock music could be when it stopped following the verse-chorus formula and became architecture instead. And that intro does something most intros don't. It creates space, room to breathe, room to think. You're not being assaulted with sound, you're being invited into something. And by the time the electric guitars kick in, you're already inside the song, already part of it.
If we all call a tune, is in the pipe.
Added to the National Registry in 2023, 52 years after release. Recognition for what the song represents. Not just a hit, but a cultural monument. A piece of music that transcended its era and became timeless. If you've ever been at a party where someone sits down with an acoustic guitar, you know what happens next. They play the first few notes of Stairway to Heaven. And someone always says no stairway. It became such a cliche that guitar stores banned it. But here's the thing. It became a cliche because it's perfect, because those opening notes are exactly what an intro should be. Immediately recognizable, impossible to forget, and still beautiful after you've heard it 10,000 times.
Laughter. Do you remember laughter?
Page played it live on a Gibson EDS 1275 double neck guitar so he could switch between 6 and 12 strings without pausing. That's dedication to the intro, making sure it sounded exactly right every single time, because he knew, even if it wasn't going to be a single, this was the one that would last. Number 1, the Rolling Stones. Oh, I mean, I can't get no satisfaction. Keith Richards doesn't remember writing it. He woke up in his flat in Carlton Hills, St. John's Wood, Philips cassette player on the nightstand, rewound the tape, 2 minutes of acoustic guitar, the sound of him dropping his pick, then 40 minutes of snoring. Somewhere in the middle of the night, in his sleep, he'd recorded one of the greatest guitar riffs in rock history and had no idea. May 1965. The Rolling Stones needed a hit. First 2 singles hadn't charted. The pressure was real. Keith brought the riff to the band, played it for them. 1 string, 5th string, a string, 3 notes, simple as breathing. But he didn't want to release it this way. This was just a little sketch, Richards said later. The fuzz tone was really there to denote what the horns would be doing. He wanted to re-record it with a horn section, make it proper, but Andrew Loog Oldham, the producer, and the rest of the band outvoted him. They heard what Keith couldn't. This wasn't a sketch. This was the song. May 10th, 1965, Chess Studios in Chicago. First recording, Brian Jones on harmonica. It was good. May 12th, 1965, RCA Studios in Hollywood. They tried again. different beat, and this time they used a Maestro FZ1 fuzz tone pedal, new technology, one of the earliest commercially available fuzz pedals, clipped the guitar signal, created a highly distorted, fuzzy, sustaining sound that was revolutionary. Nobody was making guitars sound like that in 1965. And when I Can't Get No Satisfaction dropped in June, the entire available stock of Gibson fuzz boxes sold out by the end of the year. One song changed what people thought guitars could do. Number one in the United States, first chart topper for the Rolling Stones in America, changed them from just another British invasion band into a monster. Mick Jagger said it himself. It was the song that really made the Rolling Stones, not just made them successful, made them the Rolling Stones. In the UK, pirate radio stations were the only ones that would play it. BBC thought the lyrics were too sexually suggestive. I can't get no satisfaction. Commercial frustration, sexual frustration, everything wrapped into one hook that you couldn't get out of your head. It later became their fourth number one in the UK anyway, because you can't stop something this perfect. Here's what makes this intro untouchable. It's played on one string. You don't need 5 years of guitar lessons. You don't need to understand music theory. You just need to know where the second fret is on the A string, and suddenly you're playing one of the most iconic riffs in rock history. That's genius. Not complexity, simplicity. Rolling Stone ranked it number 2 on their 500 greatest songs of all time list in 2004. Inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame in 1998. Added to the Library of Congress's National Recording Registry in 2006 for being culturally, historically, or aesthetically important. And all of it started with Keith Richards asleep, fingers moving on their own, creating something his conscious mind didn't know existed yet. Otis Redding covered it later in 1965 for Otis Blue, used horns for the riff, exactly what Keith originally wanted. And Ronnie Wood said years later that the Stones' live versions started reflecting Otis's interpretation. Because sometimes the cover shows you what the original was supposed to be, but that first version, the one with the fuzz pedal, the one Keith thought was just a sketch, that's the one that matters. That's the one that opens with a riff so simple a kid can learn it in 5 minutes, and so perfect it's been impossible to forget for 60 years. And if you've ever heard those opening notes blast from a car radio, a jukebox, a stadium PA, you know, before Mick starts singing, before the lyrics about commercialism and frustration, just that riff, fuzzy, raw, one string, doing the work of an entire orchestra. Keith Richards woke up not knowing he'd written it. The world woke up and never forgot it. That's not just an intro. That's the sound of rock and roll announcing it didn't need permission anymore. It just needed 3 notes, a fuzz pedal, and the confidence to hit record.
I've tried.